So, reasons to believe that humans are wrong, the universe is still a big giant mystery, and that all religions are essentially man-made as far as the human perspective, and assuming that there's life on other planets, their religions probably are the same, but in the same sense that they're fictional. A lot of people have often told me that the reason why they believe in their religion is because they just were raised that way, and I simply just tell people, well, the only reason why a lot of people don't believe in modern science or science that actually is accurate and has facts to go by, people just don't understand these things because they never really asked these questions at one point. They have yet to come to these realizations. So it really doesn't surprise them yet. At least not yet, anyways. But I do believe in time. You can't hide from the truth. Eventually the truth comes out somehow, whatever that may be. Because, again, I'm an agnostic. I question everything. As far as religion goes, I'll tell you right now, though, that, I mean, I can see reasons to believe in a deity, but I can't tell you specifically which one. So it's kind of like, yeah. So it's like, I don't know. And I'm fine with that, because that's what I know so far. I'm kind of measuring it accurately. But I can tell you for a fact, though, that the only reason why people fill in the blanks with what they believe is because they feel that that's the truth and it can't be anything else, because they haven't came to that realization. They don't understand how evolution works. They don't understand how big the universe really is. They don't understand, you know, if there's life on other planets. They don't really take into consideration how many planets there are, how many galaxies, how many universes, how many dimensions, how many different asteroids, moons, suns, superclusters of galaxies, just all these different classifications that probably what's even beyond the universe, if it's even, you know, it's all just an estimation, sure, when you look at science, but it's more accurate, because at least with science you can say that the universe is at least that big, and it's not like the universe is 6,000 years old, and people always try to tell you that, you know, our time is different than, like, let's say, that of another deities, and but people have always sugarcoated it. They try to make it sound like Christianity is the only way, or you're going to hell, and it's like, well, wait a minute, hold on a second here. If there really is so much confidence that these particular religions exist, why is there so much diversity? Why is it that, like, take Christianity, there's so many different Christians that they can't even agree on the same thing, so that's diverse. And then you have all these different other religions that claim that they're going to hell, and there's people that, they're kind of hypocritical when it comes to it. Like, some people can't get along with their religion. They've actually killed in the name of their God. Again, like, look at World War II. That was actually subjectable. I mean, the Treaty of Versailles would have kind of led it into World War II, but then you also had, like, Hitler, whether he was Jewish or a Christian, kind of thought he was killing the Jews for the good reason, or at least that's what I've been told over the years. I don't know how true that was, because I wasn't in that time period. But that, or look at the Crusades during Alexander the Great's year, or the Salem witch trials. Look at how that worked out, just to give you some examples. Now, yeah, you could argue that it was humanity that killed and not just God, sure, but I mean, like, the fact that people don't think about the things they do, and some people are hypocrites, it's kind of subjectable. But when you really think about it, I mean, but let's talk about things we don't know. Again, going back to what I said at the beginning of this video, why I believe that, if there is a deity out there, it's not going to be what we think it is. Okay, this is going to sound stupid, but mind you, this idea might actually sound very transverse, or rather, it's kind of like if you've ever played the video game series Star Ocean. The idea is it's supposed to be based on Star Trek, and humanity is like going to other planets, and they see like life on other planets and all that, which is actually pretty cool. But like, the concept is really interesting. I was actually very intrigued by it, and I think it's kind of like the Record of Megara series, where like there's like, essentially the idea is like this. If there are deities, they could be from another dimension. They would essentially be, essentially at one point in their lives, they were supposed to be like mortals, but they died, became a spirit, and then because they were like living in this eternal sort of, reality, they could essentially gather as much knowledge, and they've gotten so advanced that they could just levitate, they could shoot magic from their hands, create life, and, again, it's just a video game series, yes, but, but if, like, for example, like, you take, like, Christianity, if, like, the Christian God was able to do all these things, maybe that's how God was created. Maybe God was just a living organism somewhere else, and it became what it was, and assuming it does exist. But again, I always like to consider like the argument that, does a God exist or a deity, like a male entity, or maybe it's an it, maybe it's something else, a goddess, it could be anything, a deity, an it, something that was able to exist. Or you could have like, then the question that would be even harder to ask, and this would be another debatable subject, is what God exists. And no one can prove it, because there's so much we don't know. And yet, when you really think about it, it's true. The only reason people say they believe what they do is because they don't simply understand the subject matter enough to the point where, see, it's a proven fact that as far as life goes, the more we learn every single day about what we don't know, compare it to a ratio. Okay, for every mystery that humanity finally solves, there's even more mysteries. Somewhere out there in the universe, there's probably an infinite number of dimensions, an infinite number of universes, and even beyond that. So it's like infinity to the infinite power, beyond that. Beyond infinity to the infinite power. I know that doesn't sound like that makes sense, because infinity is as big as you want it to be, but you get what I'm saying. The bigger the universe is, the more possibilities there are. The more possibilities there are, the more things humanity has a possible chance of exploring, if somehow we could get that far out there, and we don't really understand it. And so therefore, if it's like for example, time and space is another good example. You got all this space and all this time, these different time periods of like when you could go and look at our planet. Nobody knows what happened here. Some people say that we're not from this planet. I don't mean like alien probes, but some people have actually stated through evolution that we came from, like again in the work of Carl Sagan, we came from the stars, because at one point, and it's another really good video game series I'd like to remind you of. It's like if anybody's ever played The Illusion of Gaia for the Super Nintendo, that game was really interesting. It talked about like how evolution, like there's planetary evolution, and like every single, I mean, you kind of got to like look past like the character stories, but like if you kind of think of like there's life on other planets, and then like all planet okay, like everything is made of energy. Everything evolves. There's different types of evolution. You can believe that there's different types of. Again, the only reason why people believe in evolution is because they see changes. There's evidence to believe this. But a lot of people don't believe it. Some people don't believe in evolution because they think it's a contradiction of what their religion is. And if people could come to that realization, if they could just look past that, you would be surprised that your religion was actually wrong versus, let's say, science and accurate. And again, I'm not talking about Christian science. I'm talking about science that's actually 100% true, or at least on the right track anyways, if there was ever some sort of contradiction there. But again, at least with science, at least people are making progress with it. It's not, I mean, you can't just take like what some guy says on TV, talks about how, oh yeah, they take modern science and they say this just proves the Bible exists. No, that's just some guy lying on television because he can make money off it. And that's another thing. Well, what about religion being a scam then? You ever realize how much money like churches get away with tax evasion and all that? They don't have to pay taxes, and they just tell people all these things. Some churches will only take 25% of what you do, and even charity donations, as far as going to a church, doesn't necessarily go right where they say it is. It goes right into their pockets instead. So you can't really trust what people say, but you can't also trust everything that that we know, because we have to find the answers ourselves. We don't know everything, but faith, just to acknowledge something to accept something without acknowledging it, that's not going to help either, people. That's literally like saying doing nothing in this case. It's not going to work. Okay, so my point is this. Okay, I'm not an atheist. I'm an agnostic. But until someone has proof that there's something out there, we have to figure these things out. We can't just accept what somebody said because somebody else gave up and they figured, oh hey, we can just lie to people and make millions, if not billions of dollars just by being hypocrites. That's what's wrong with this world, or at least as far as humanity goes. People don't care. You see, this is the way I look at it. It took me years to figure this out. Yeah, I mean, you could go up to somebody and say, oh, they don't care. Somebody will say they don't care about something. And people would say, well, yeah, no shot. People will always find a way not to care. No shit, right? But I figured something out though. I know why people don't care, to the point where it goes beyond that. People realize it took me years of psychology to understand this. You ever realize why people lie continuously? Because people realize they're wrong, and they can't live with that. They'll never admit that. So what they do is they try to live in a world of denial, but they do it in such a way that they go against their own instincts. Their emotions tell them it's wrong, but they still do it. The only reason people do that is because they can't live with the reality they're faced with. And maybe very few people can, but you know what? Embrace the truth. Not what we think the truth is, but what really is the truth, what is out there. Because again, the universe doesn't revolve around humanity. Humanity revolves around the universe. There were many things that happened before our time. There were many things that are going to happen before our time. And when you really start taking into consideration all these other planets that are out there and all these other individual possibilities, what makes humanity and Earth so special besides that we do exist? If you think about it, the way I look at it at least, it's going to be something humans don't know. And therefore, any answer that anybody tries to fill their heads in with, well, that's just plain ignorance. And as we all know, ignorance is an excuse, not progression.